All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about one of the biggest, most fundamental questions in all of Warhammer 40,000. What did the Emperor of Mankind actually want? What was his original plan? To get to the bottom of that, we have to start with a pretty huge and, honestly, kind of shocking statement.
That's right, the whole thing. The massive, galaxy-spanning Imperium that we all know and, well, that we know. It's basically a complete corruption of what its creator originally intended. And that's the central mystery we're going to unpack today, separating the lie from the long-lost truth. So before we can even get to the truth, we've got to talk about the lie that's taken its place. And that lie, of course, is the whole idea of the God Emperor and the Imperium of the 41st millennium.
This is the Imperium you're probably familiar with, right? It's this brutal, oppressive empire where science and progress have basically been dead for 10,000 years. Billions upon billions of people worship the Emperor not as a leader, but as a silent, unmoving god on a throne. And their entire civilization is just suffocated by religious dogma, superstition, and fear. And here's the big question that changes everything. What if this grim, dark future, this empire built on faith and terror, is the absolute opposite of what the Emperor ever wanted to create? Because the Emperor's actual philosophy, well, it was something else entirely. It had a name, the Imperial Truth, and it was a vision for a future that had no room for gods at all. The Imperial Truth was the absolute bedrock of the Emperor's Great Crusade. You have to understand, this was a philosophy of pure, hardcore reason. In his eyes, faith and worship weren't just kind of useless. He saw them as active threats, as chains holding humanity back from its true potential. So, at its heart, the Imperial Truth taught that the universe wasn't run by some moody, unknowable gods. Nope. It was governed by physical laws, laws that you could study, understand, and master through science. The Emperor believed that knowledge was the only real weapon against fear, and that humanity's destiny wasn't to sit around praying for some divine rescue, but to grab the controls and steer its own future. Religion, to him, had only ever caused division, ignorance, and war. Now, if you want to know just how serious he was about this whole secular vision, you just have to look at one of the most powerful things he ever did, right there on Terra. This wasn't some casual preference for science, It was an all-out war on superstition, in every form it took. The Emperor didn't just conquer planets. He completely remade their cultures, enforcing the Imperial Truth with debate and logic, and yeah, when that didn't work, with the full might of his legion. There's this famous story where the Emperor tracked down the very last priest in the very last church on all of Terra. He debated him, and then he tore the church down, stone by stone. This was meant to be the final, definitive end to the Age of Faith, a signal to the entire galaxy that humanity's future would be built on reason, not on reverence.
Okay, so if the Imperium wasn't supposed to be some giant galactic temple, then what on earth was it for? And this brings us to probably the most important metaphor for understanding the Emperor's real plan.
This is so crucial. The Imperium was never meant to be the end goal. It was supposed to be a scaffold, a temporary protective framework you build around a skyscraper. It was there to unite and shield humanity while it went through a massive, species-wide transformation. And the plan itself was just mind-blowingly ambitious. First, you unify all of humanity under the Imperial Truth. Next, you use the Imperium's structure to push science and progress forward. And all of that was to guide humanity's evolution into a fully psychic species, a race that could finally master the warp and leave behind all the weaknesses that had haunted it for thousands of years. And when you put the two side by side, the difference is just staggering. The vision was a secular, logical future. The reality is a religious, dogmatic nightmare. The Imperium was meant to be a temporary scaffold for growth, but it basically fossilized into this permanent, stagnant empire. The whole point was evolution, and the result was 10,000 years of standing still. And all of this, it brings us right to the fundamental tragedy of the entire Warhammer 40K setting, the great crushing irony of the Emperor's plan. Look at this. Every single major part of his vision got twisted into its polar opposite. He saw himself as a guide, a catalyst for progress, and he ended up being worshipped as a god. He built the Imperium to be a tool to lift humanity up, and it became the boot stamping on humanity's face forever. And his ultimate legacy, which was supposed to be a future free from faith, became the biggest, most fanatical religion the galaxy has ever seen.
I mean, that's the ultimate punchline to this cosmic joke, isn't it? It is absolute, no-compromise war against religion. The Emperor created this massive vacuum. And when he was struck down and put on the Golden Throne, his followers filled that vacuum with the only thing they had left: faith in him, the very thing he fought to destroy.
Which leaves us with one last, lingering thought. A vision, no matter how grand or perfect, is totally worthless without the right execution. And here's the kicker. The Emperor wasn't the only piece on the board. The failure of his dream wasn't just on him. It was shaped and broken by the very sons he created to help him build it. And, well, that's a story for another time.